Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Awesome. I was wondering, I was like, did Tracy ask me to moderate this panel because she thinks I'm having amazing sex all the time? Not mad if that's what she thinks, but hey. Well, first I'll introduce myself and then I'll introduce our amazing speakers here today. I am Samantha Gutstadt. Like many of you guys here, I wear a lot of hats. I am a content creator, I'm a comedian, I'm a writer, I'm a business owner and co-founder. And my favorite hat of all is I'm a mom. I'm a mom to 3 little ones who are the light of my life. And we are here today talking about sexual health. It's presented by Foria, which I'm a huge fan of and have used. I want to introduce Kiana Reeves. Any relation to Keanu? Oh,
Zero. Absolutely zero. Yeah.
had to ask. And Dr. Tina Coopersmith. Hi there. So Kiana Reeves is a teacher, a practitioner, a speaker, a leading voice in the sexual wellness movement, as well as CCO of Foria Wellness, which is an amazing company. And Dr. Tina Coopersmith is a triple board certified OBGYN and REI fertility, as well as an integrative medicine. And you are also certified an erotic blueprint sexuality coach as a sexuality coach and an accelerated evolution transcendence coach, which I would love to learn more about what that all means. I was definitely Googling it a lot. I'll let you guys give us a brief intro and then we'll get into it.
Oh, I go first. Ouch. Okay. So obviously I'm a gynecologist. I've been writing prescriptions for sex for like 30 years as a fertility doctor. Go home play, right? And, but it was all in the medical world, right? And I want to go back to how I got here because my last 4 years, which is my journey kind of out of the medical world, is really my journey truly into sexuality, even though I spent 30 years writing prescriptions for sex all the time and being the go-to doctor for women with questions with sex. But for me, I was raised by a male general surgeon and trained in the Western medical system. And that meant I lived in my brain, right? I was totally logical and taught not to feel, not to be sensate. Let me tell you, that's not great for good sex, okay? Then add to that, when I was 5, I discovered this really cool self-pleasure practice. It was like energy work, and I had no idea what it was. Told my best friends next door and was promptly scolded and shamed by their mother, like, oh, that's bad, never do that again. And I was like, what did I do? So I dissociated from my body, really, and never talked to anybody about this practice I had. I didn't know what it was. It was never in the books about masturbation because it was energy. It was not touch. And I didn't know what that was. And then fast forward, it's time to pick a mate. I'm finishing med school. I'm dating another doctor, 2 Jewish doctors. Perfect. My mom's so happy. And then my mom gets cancer and she dies. And let me tell you, it was such a trauma that I'm realizing now as I'm writing books that I'm like, I left my body for the 9 months when she was sick. And I have no memories of those 9 months, except for one sentence that changed the rest of my life. Congratulations on your marriage to Doug. And so then it was like, all right, are we going to get married? And my logic brain, he checked all the boxes. But my body was like, I don't think this is right. And I remember even asking my sister, what happens if like you're not passionate with this guy? She's like, oh, that comes in and out. Just get. Anyway, fast forward 30 years of marriage, 3 kids, great life. And it really was. But something was missing. And I knew it in my soul. And I knew it for 30 years. The community, it's hard enough, as we all know, raising a family, having a marriage, communicating, and a career, like that's hard enough. If that intimacy doesn't pull you closer, you're just going to go away. If you don't have communication skills, it's going to pull you away. Anyway, so when I took my last kid to college, I left the marriage and started on my deep dive into sensuality and sexuality. And I heard Jaya speak, who is the erotic blueprint master inventor. And it was like the light bulb went off of like, oh, now I know who I am. I understand my blueprint. I understand my spouse's blueprint and why we miscommunicated. I have new tools for communication, and I need to spread this to the world. And it made me realize why Western medicine cannot heal us completely, because Western medicine works with the sexual blueprint and not all 4 bodies. And we'll talk about that later. Sorry, that might have been too long.
Not at all. It's fascinating. All right. I'd like to hear a little intro from you, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'll keep mine shorter because I know we have a lot to get through. I'm the chief content officer at Foria, but I'm also a sexological body worker. Love Jaya's work. It's amazing, amazing work. And have had a long practice of supporting women, female-bodied folks, and couples through all sorts of intimacy and sexual wellness concerns, and learning a lot about pleasure through embodiment work and somatic work, which sounds like we're very lined up with that.
All right. And we're going to open at the end, we'll open it up to questions from you guys if there's something that we haven't covered, but we'll kick it off with talking about sex and wellness. How are they related, and what does it mean to be sexually healthy? Who wants to start this one?
I'm happy to take it. All right. So it's interesting because this is an emerging conversation, right? In the last 5 years, I would say you would put the word sex next to health and everyone would be like a big question mark over their head. How are they related? But when you look at the science that's coming out and you take, anecdotal evidence from the last 100,000 years of human history, pleasure is at the core of sex and connection is at the core of sex. And those are 2 things that are foundational to your well-being, not just on a neurochemical level when you're talking about oxytocin and dopamine and things that help you feel really grounded and in your body. But the stress response, the way that pleasure helps your stress response actually turn down the cortisol and become available to your life and to your sensation. And so I really believe, and I know this, the whole field, the emerging field of sexual wellness is all about understanding how sexual pleasure, sexual connection, intimacy with others contributes greatly to your well-being in a number of ways. And I know you probably have a lot of thoughts on this too.
Thanks, Kiana.
So I'm going to piggyback 2 things on that. So sexuality, I realized, woke me up at 3 a.m, the sentence, it's a way to remember yourself back to being whole of mind, body, heart, and spirit, okay? Because sexuality combines it all. And it also connects you with your shadow of the broken child when you play with that broken child and bring it back into the bedroom. And then the other thing is medically, like she talked about, eroticism and pleasure is the secret sauce to being well, because we have 2 nervous systems, the fight or flight, that everybody calls survival, and then the rest and digest, relax and reproduce. And sex is the way to tell your body you're safe to relax and rest, reproduce, and eat. And what's more important to survival?
Wonderful. All right, on to our next question. So I love this one because I think we are all representing different age groups here today. I'm in my early 40s. As we age, how can women better understand and prioritize their sexual health and their needs through different stages of our lives? I was just talking to somebody outside that we go through so many seasons as women, finding your partner, dating, when you're having babies, and that's a stage. And then after that, when you're done building your family. So I'd be so curious how you prioritize and understand those needs through our different stages.
So I guess the essential part is knowing yourself and learning what turns you on and how your body responds to turn on, and not having and again, I use the word pleasure and eroticism in a big way, just like the person before talked about her to-do list versus someone else's to-do list. If running is what brings you pleasure, that's part of your eroticism. If essential oils is what brings you pleasure, so knowing you and your body and your mind and your heart, and literally, do you get turned on energetically, which is like going out and seeing a sunrise and a sunset? Or do you like the essential oils and music and dance and really being connected with your emotions and feeling? Is it just the physical body, running and physical sex? Touch me down there and I need it. Or is it kinky play, which is doing things that are against the rules or doing things outside the norm or just being creative? Or do you need all of them? That was my problem. I need all of them. Okay. I'm not filled up unless I get all of them. And so knowing yourself is the number one thing for all the ages. And then we could talk about what to do at each age.
I think it's interesting because connecting to what you said, that our pleasure and our sexuality and our sense of sensuality and our own eroticism is like this with the nervous system. It's so tightly wound up together. And it's one of the great access points that we have that's free, easy to connect with at any point in our day, that you can do just by yourself, is connecting with your pleasure. And this is throughout every stage, because we do like postpartum, go through all of these hormonal changes when you're lactating. I have 2 young kids, and remember the like 2 years I was breastfeeding where I had no libido. There's, perimenopause, there's menopause, there's postmenopause, there's your monthly cycle that can really impact your libido. And so understanding that, particularly when you live in a female body, your sex drive, your desire, what gives you pleasure is always going to change. And it's never going to be the same moment to moment. But what does stay the same is your connection to yourself. And so if you have a practice where you bring in every day, whether it's like traditional self-pleasure, masturbation focused, or a pleasure practice that literally just puts you into sensation that feels good. Because going back to this idea of the nervous system, particularly if you're a mother, you're constantly caring for everyone outside of yourself. Your awareness is on everybody's well-being outside yourself, your children, your partner, your work, your house. And to take your awareness and bring it back into your body and to use tools of embodiment, like focusing on sensation, like what actually you're feeling, focus on your breath, focus on what grounds you and feels good. It's actually a deep tool for regulation so that you're a better parent, you're a better partner, you can show up for work more fully, you're available for creativity. And so you can use pleasure in that way every day. And it's really, really powerful. And it's a powerful way also to clear emotion. So if you have a lot of stress backed up, or if you have a lot of grief, you lost someone in your life, or you're going through a hard time in a relationship, to use your body and use your pleasure to move that emotional energy makes you so much more available for the changes that happen over the course of your life.
It's actually fascinating. And I also want to just acknowledge how amazing it is that we're having this conversation. I feel like if this was so many years ago, a different generation, we wouldn't be talking about our own sexual needs and pleasure. So I'm just grateful that we're having these conversations now. Speaking about aging, as women age, and men too, but we're talking about ourselves right now, we can be impacted by a lack of sex drive. What are ways to address that lack of intimacy, sex, or sex drive as those changes happen? And when do you mostly, in your expertise, see those changes happening, or is it different for everybody?
I mean, I think it's different for everybody because everybody has different needs, different desires, different stresses in their life. But again, we've been taught a story that you're supposed to have spontaneous desire. It's like this story that you're just supposed to have spontaneous desire and it's supposed to be there when you want. And I always say to someone, do you go to the movie theater and say, what's playing? That's where I'm going to go see. Or do you like look at, like, what do you want to do tonight? Do you want to go bowling or you want to go to the movies? Do you want to go to the restaurant? What do you want to see? Like responsive desire and scheduling it and reminding yourself it's okay to take a break. It's okay to have pleasure. And then you actually schedule time for pleasure. And you don't feel guilty. It's not like you're being lazy. It's you're taking care of yourself. And so understanding responsive desire versus that spontaneous. And yeah, when you're 15, you're going to have spontaneous desire. It's new, you're horny, you're young. But it's also the story of how we talk about sex and the way movies talk about sex. And so I just really remind people to schedule an intimate time. Could be a kiss in the morning. It doesn't have to be a full-blown, 3-hour thing, but you also could schedule. And when you have young kids, I'm always talking to my patients, does your kid have a 2-hour play date in the middle of the day? that may need to be your new, like, oh, I'll trade off 2 hours at 2 in the afternoon if you do that for me next week. And it's not Saturday night at 11 o'clock when you're exhausted.
It's a very good point. I think the only thing I'll add is, as our bodies change over time, especially as you're heading into the, motherhood, perimenopause, menopausal times in life, that the changes that are physiologically happening in your body are simultaneously happening when you know yourself best, you know your body best, you're more connected to yourself than you've ever been, and you're probably feeling the most powerful. And so at Foria, we really like to talk about how this time in life, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like your sex life can keep getting better and better and better if you tend to it and if you have the right tools. And so there's this idea that you know your body, sex can be really good, you're feeling really intimate with your partner, but you need lube. You need tools that support your arousal. You need to understand the way arousal works in your body. And speaking about responsive desire and spontaneous desire, responsive desire is primarily the type of desire that women experience. And so it comes through the body. It's not from the mind first, it's body first. And so really practicing like what activates my desire. It could be a scent, it could be something you're looking at, it could be a kind of touch, it could be reading erotica, but it's understanding that getting yourself in the mood and giving yourself the time and space to get into that state is a really important practice for intimacy and for longevity in relationship, which is in itself another practice. Yeah.
Sure.
The other thing I just want to mention, which is so critical, is safety, especially for women. We've been taught, even though I heard this just recently, the concept of don't have sex before marriage is telling women their body isn't their own. It is actually property of the guy who's going to marry them. Okay. And so we need to be safe because we've been abused for generations and we've been slaves and property for generations. So learning how you feel safe in your relationship. And we even joke, like, when the guy does the dishes at night, that's foreplay, right? Like, you're being taken care of. Go get ready, right? So making sure you're safe in your body and safe in your relationship with others.
Thank you for adding that. That is really important. And also, thank you for adding that women are sexual beings beyond the childbearing years. I feel like there's so much in the media. There's an SNL sketch that is like etched in my mind as someone that makes comedy. And it was it was some older comedians, older in their 50s, and Amy Schumer showing up and being put to like learning that women in their 30s get put to pasture, and they're like I just thought it was so funny and such a funny remark that they did on how the media portrays women as sexual beings past like an expiry date, which is, as I'm in my early 40s and I feel like hitting my sexual prime, I was laughing watching that. All right. And also, speaking of products in the beauty industry, Kiana, how does Foria address sexual health both in a relationship and with oneself? And why do you think so many beauty brands are getting involved in the sexual wellness conversation? And what do you think this means for the industry as a whole?
Well, sex is like the best kept secret in the beauty industry. And if everyone is having great sex all the time, we literally wouldn't need a beauty industry. You wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, because it gets your blood moving. You get so much oxygen flowing through your tissues. You have that, like, it's called the post-O glow, where you look all radiant and sweaty and moisturized. That's real physiological response in your body because your circulation's pumping, your pupils dilate, you get flushed all through your face. It's really good for you. Like, sex is very therapeutic and very good for you. And so I think that there's this merging, right, of the beauty industry embracing sexual wellness, and it's beautiful and it's important. But I see it also as like this third leg, which is this clean beauty, and the wellness industry and the beauty industry and the sexual wellness industry coming together and understanding that they're all highly related, because the beauty industry at its core is designed to help us feel beautiful so that we don't just feel beautiful ourselves, but also to attract other people, like, to be honest. And it's this very interesting thing that we get to do where we start to get to the root of like, what are we trying to achieve here? And at the heart, it's love and connection. And so we're a brand that gets to support people in their love lives, in their connection with themselves, in loving their bodies and understanding their bodies more. And we talk all the time, not just about pleasure, but about knowing yourself. Like how many of us have some kind of inhibition because of the way we look naked, or the way our faces look without makeup, or the way that our partner might see us when we're, looking a particular way. And so we're bringing these questions to the forefront because that's the kind of stuff that gets in the way of intimacy and of being able to actually feel deeply connected to someone, particularly around your genitals, right? There's so much shame about how my vagina looks, how my vulva looks, how it feels after I have a baby. Does it feel the same for my partner? Does it feel the same for me? Do I have the same sensation available to me? Maybe you had stitches, maybe you had an episiotomy. So at the heart, we're all doing the same thing. The beauty industry is helping us feel a sense of belonging in our bodies. Our sexual wellness industry is helping us feel a sense of belonging in our bodies and also in our relationships. Because when it comes down to it, our intimate relationships, the thing that defines and sets them apart from friendships is sex and is sexual intimacy. And without that, without feeding that in our partnerships, they start to undo themselves because it's a true human need. And we have to have that to feel deeply satisfied, as you were speaking about earlier on in the talk.
Thank you. So great. Okay, Dr. Tina, this one is for you. You earlier in your intro spoke about eroticism is the secret sauce to wellness. What does that mean? And as an OBGYN, what are you seeing in your practice in regards to sexuality specifically? What are some common complaints or problems that you see arise?
Well, eroticism as a secret sauce to wellness is really the nervous system at its best. So we were wired to escape the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, the adrenal gland is this big. The vagus nerve innervates everything else. And yet, the power of that little adrenal gland to stay on, we need 8 positive events to balance 1 negative event, because it's way more important for your physical survival to run away from that tiger. And if the tiger is chasing you, you can't digest your food, you drop your load and you run. And you're not supposed to hide in the bushes and have sex if the tiger is about to pounce, right? That's just stupid. So we need 8 positives because the power of that cortisol. And if you actually know the biochemistry, you start from cholesterol. So cholesterol is actually not evil and bad. It's necessary for all cell membranes. But cholesterol makes cortisol. Oh, but if you take a right turn, it makes estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. So when you're always making cortisol, guess what? You're not going to make hormones. You're not going to ovulate. The severe case of stress for women when they're not enough fat in their bodies, when they're too stressed out, when they're competitive athletes, they stop getting the period. The body is brilliant. It's like, whoa, we're just trying to keep you alive. We are not going to have a baby now. And same thing, like, what I'm seeing a lot of infertility is diminished ovarian reserve. Women don't have enough eggs. And it's the ovaries going, I'm taking a hit for the team. Taking a hit for the team. I'm going to keep this human alive and we're going to dump those eggs. And what do we need to do? We need to go back to pleasure and teach our body it's safe to be in this body. It's safe to have pleasure. It's safe to have sex. It's safe to open our heart up, lie on our back like a cat or a dog, and have someone penetrate us. Like, think about that. It's true safety. And so when I think of life as a bank account, you have withdrawals and deposits. You do not have to schedule those withdrawals. Stress will happen, right? We do not need to schedule it. Even the perfect life, it's going to show up. But we have to schedule 8 pleasurable events to put money in the bank to balance that one withdrawal over and over again. So the complaints I hear in my body, I'm stressed out, I'm stressed out, I'm stressed out. I'm too dry. Of course you're dry. There's no blood going to your genitals. It's going to your heart and your legs. We don't make enough nitric oxide after the age of 35. We need more nitric oxide. We need to eat beets and possibly nitric oxide pills. we need to change our diets. The little bacteria in our bodies are going, you're feeding me soda. I'm starving. I do not want this body to be alive. I'm going to jump ship and kill you. So it sounds silly, but and the other thing is fear. The beauty industry is, yeah, it's to make you beautiful, but it's to make you fear that you're not beautiful. And my medical industry is profiting off all of you. You get bonuses in fertility clinics, not mine, because I own my own, but you get bonuses if you do IVF. So that, and all those people that are freezing their eggs, oh my God, you're never going to get pregnant. Oh my God, you're never going to get pregnant. You better put your eggs away. They're breeding infertility in all of us because it's money making and not actually asking, why can't you get pregnant the natural way? And we're not getting pregnant the natural way because we're not, there's stuff underneath us, which is stress and fear and bad diets and bad environment and all the drugs, the chemicals and stuff.
Before we dive into questions from you guys, which I'm sure we have, I have one more question. It's a broad one, so we'll see where we go with it. What are both of you guys, your top tips for women who want to improve their sex life, and where is there like a concrete place to start? Because it can be really overwhelming.
Okay, I'm going to sound like repetitive with this, but I am so clearly think that everyone needs a pleasure practice built in. It's like your yoga, you wash your face at night, you tend to your pleasure. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be feeling your body and you're not going to be wanting connection with other people.
Can you give us some specific pleasure practice?
Yeah. So, okay. So mine, the one that I have is I like get in my underwear. I turn the lights off. I have a really big rug dedicated specifically to this in my house. No one comes in this room. It's my little area. And I do it at night because my kids have gone to bed. I put on my playlist. Maybe sometimes it's like I want to twerk and dance my ass off playlist. Sometimes it's like I want to cry and wail and scream into a pillow. Sometimes I'll put on my rage playlist and I will get my bat out and I will beat the shit out of a pillow. And because I'm moving energy in my body, but I let myself feel pleasure the whole time. Because when you are able to feel pleasure through every range of emotion, through everything that's going on in your life, you are anchored to safety in your nervous system and you are available for connection with another person and with yourself. And that's when you will feel your sex drive. And that's when you will start to feel like, oh, like I'm in my sensuality. Being in your sensuality is just being in your senses. But you can't do that when you're just running loops all day in your mind and thinking all day and planning for everyone else.
Those are amazing tips. I might go home and try some of those later. Anyone else? Yeah. Thank you. All right.
I love that. That was really good. My tip was really know your erotic blueprint. Know what turns you on. And so I would say go home and start playing with those things. Start playing with breath work. Start playing with eye gazing. Start playing with all different things that turn your senses on. Start playing with masturbating and touching your genitals. And my new thing, we've all learned how to do breast exams, right? For breast cancer. Throw it out. Learn a tantra breast massage. And if you're actually massaging your breasts for self-love and self-pleasure, I guarantee if you feel a lump, you're going to notice it because you're doing it every day. So again, come to your body with love and not, oh my God, am I dying? Right? And so yeah, know your erotic blueprint and know your stack. So I'll be honest, like for years, women are supposed to be sensual, right? We're supposed to be sensual beings. And I'm so dissociated and traumatized that like I'm just pulling it all together. And so I'd be like, I need a massage. I need candles. And I love those. And I realized, oh, it relaxes me so much. I'm not actually aroused. I'm just relaxed. Right. And then I would fall asleep on my husband. He'd be pissed off. I'm like, I gave you a massage. What happened? And it was like, oh, I now know I need totally different play if you want to wake me up. Right. So, right. I need to be safe. I need to be relaxed, but I need a rousing, like, scratch my head, wake me up, right? You need this side of the paddle, not there, right? So, and don't be scared to play. So my big thing is sex is play. It's adult play. And are you playing with your mind? Are you playing with your heart, your emotions, your physical body? soul-to-soul connection, and talk to your partner. When you were 5 years old and you went to a play date, guarantee, do you want to play outside or do you want to play a board game? Which board game? Oh, do you play Monopoly? Do you have like free parking in the middle? Do you get that's not in the rule book. It's not, we don't play that in my house. We don't get together and ask people, how do you play about sex? Let's talk about how we play and have the conversation. Hey, can I play in your blueprint tonight or mine? Or let's try a new one that's not good for either of us, but let's play in it.
Such amazing tips, you guys. Before we close it out, I want to open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions for these amazing ladies before we wrap this up? Anyone? Yep. I will walk over because it's hard to hear. Hello. What's your name?
I'm Camille.
Thanks, Camille.
Well, this might be a little bit of a deeper question than this panel can answer, but hopefully just to start the conversation, what recommendations do you have for somebody who grew up in a religious kind of household and there's like a lot of stigma, a lot of past baggage that they're carrying, but they want to discover themselves, but it's just the foundation was like doomed from the start, if you will.
A fantastic question that I think a lot of us can actually relate to.
It's a really good question. And to varying degrees, like no one escaped sexual shame. Nobody, no one in this room, even if they were raised very sex positive, because the culture we were raised in and what the culture told us about our bodies is inherently going to be in all of us. So to some level, we're all facing like that big shame in the room. The main thing for me that I would say is to give presence to your shame, because shame is this interesting emotion that'll wear a lot of different masks. Sometimes it might feel like disinterest. Sometimes it might feel like disgust. Sometimes it might feel like anger or repulsion. Sometimes it feels like you're drawn to something that you can't explain. So shame itself doesn't always present as like, I'm embarrassed or I'm ashamed. It just might be 10,000 other things. So what you do is you build a pleasure practice with yourself. If you have a partner, you can have a pleasure practice with your partner too. And just get curious, like start to write lists about things that you feel a little spark towards, like, ooh, that sounds interesting. Like, oh, maybe that's interesting. And by the very nature of exploration, your shame will arise. And if you can pretend this is your shame in my hand, if you can just look at it, one of my teachers once said, just keep it company. Keep it company, because what happens is when you keep an emotion company where you don't let it go subterranean and drive your life, but you keep it company, like, I see you, I hear those voices, I see that I'm feeling disgusted, and you sit with it and you let it usually will manifest as a sensation in your body where, like, for me, disgust and shame will start, like, I'll get nauseous and I'll feel like I want to like throw up. And so you can start to express it through the body, like actual, what does my disgust feel like? And as you do that, it will clear and something else will arise, and it might look like grief. It might be tears that you've missed connecting with yourself in this way. It might be anger, and you're present to every emotion that arises and you express it. That's the key thing. You keep it company, you see it, and then you express it through the body through sound, breath, and movement. And that will continue to change what will feel like closure or dissociation in your nervous system. Things will start to feel much more available for you. So, great question.
Sadly, we have to wrap this up. If you guys have any more questions for Kiana or Dr. Tina, please come up to them. You guys will be here for a little bit longer. This was such an amazing like half hour, was it more, 45 minutes to talk about sex and wellness. Thank you to Kiana, Dr. Tina. Let's put our hands together. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and stay tuned for the next talk.